He just sees my face, he's on the phone, and he just freezes. And now I'm really nervous, something's up. So I have a horror story to tell you, and I know a lot of folks have come in here and told you horror stories about dealerships, and I hate to talk badly about any particular dealership, but this was a nightmare for me, one of the most stressful moments of my life. Back in 2002, I was lucky enough to put my pennies together and order an E46 M3. This is when the E46 had first come out, and a good buddy of mine had just bought one, and he had the SMG gearbox, which I was really intrigued by. I'm a manual guy. I would have ordered a manual, but my buddy Scott kind of convinced me to order an SMG, and I had driven his, and I was intrigued by it. And what I loved about that gearbox and any single clutch electro-hydraulic box is that as a driver, you're part of the equation. Yes, they're clunky. If you leave in the automatic mode, first of all, you're an idiot. Why would you buy that gearbox and not shift the paddles? And how hard is it to pull the damn paddle? So anybody that complains about the SMG gearbox or any F1 gearbox in Ferraris or even the Maserati Quattroporte back in the day, because it's clunky and automatic, is an idiot. Never drive those things in automatic. Shift the damn paddles, right? I ordered the SMG. So here's the thing with the E46 M3. Yes, the E30 is the poster child for M cars, but if you drive an E30 today, super light and nimble and it corners well, but no go, no power. Stock on those goofy little wheels, it just didn't, I don't know, it didn't hold up. But amazing car, look, it's the icon, right? And the racing successes, enough said. E30 is the E30, the holy grail, I guess, of M cars. But the E36 that followed, way superior car, especially the Euro version. Amazing, big jump to the E36, 6-cylinder over 4-cylinder. Yes, it got a little heavier, but still super nimble car by today's standards, still lightweight. And of course, it was the lightweight version. But then the jump from E36 to E46, I think was almost like a 2-generational jump. I liken it to the jump from F430 to 458. That was massive. That was almost like a 3-generation jump for Ferrari. But the thing to keep in mind, which we were talking about earlier, the E46 came out in a time when what we would consider supercars today were, obviously they were the pinnacle at the time, but they weren't quite supercars. Ferrari 360, Porsche 911 turbos, which have always been amazing. And the 360 itself, a pretty big jump for Ferrari from 355 to 360. Electro-hydraulic gearbox. I mean, it was an amazing car, but the E46 M3, when it launched, wasn't that far off of those cars. What made the E46 so amazing to me is that it was a usable everyday car. The build quality had gone significantly up from the E36 as well. The materials inside, and when the door shut, there was just this German solidity that the Germans have that reputation, but had kind of started to lose it. That car had it. And it just felt like a lot of car, especially for the money. And the performance-wise, it did, like I said, 80, 90%, 95% of what the supercars of the day did. So that's why that car, for those of us that have sort of had experience through E30, E36, E46, E90, E92, if we're talking about the coupe, and even F80, the current car that's now going away, that car is kind of the sweet spot. I was a little nervous because I kind of couldn't really afford this car. I was definitely going to be car poor, but I just could, right? Not the most responsible decision to make. Ordered the car, it arrives, and I'm like a kid before Christmas that morning when I drive up to get the car. And I bought it at a dealership that was about an hour from my home, even though there were 3 dealerships closer to me, because my friend Scott that I mentioned earlier had bought his previous BMWs from this dealership. His family had purchased lots of cars from them. They were a known quantity and friends of my friends. So no problem. And they gave me the car at sticker, which at the time you could get, but you have to work a little bit to get it. Show up to pick up my car, and I remember as I'm signing the papers and they give me the keys and I'm in it, I remember pulling out of the dealership on PCH there in Newport Beach thinking, at some point they're gonna stop me. They can't give me, I have this car. I was blown away by the car. I think it took me that weekend to put the 1,200 miles on it for the braking, because you couldn't go full throttle, couldn't go over 100 miles an hour, a bunch of stuff you can't do in those cars. And the braking procedure was pretty critical. We would later find out it was really critical because I had to rebuild all the bottom ends on those cars. But I followed it to a T, and I called the dealership. I'm like, okay, I'm ready for my 1,200 mile break-in, because after the 1,200 mile break-in, all bets are off, you can hammer down. So I remember I called him, and I exaggerated. Probably took me that week, because I remember I took the car in on a Friday for the 1,200 mile inspection, drove the hour out of my way to take it in. And my plan was to wait for the car. And I'm super OCD. You know that about me. I write down the mileage on the car. Before I would ever take my car to the dealership, I'd make sure it was washed, because the dealership would wash it for you, but they're never gonna wash your car the way we wash our cars. So the car was clean, and I tell them every time, no need to wash it, it's fine. And I even remember asking them, and I knew the answer, because it's that 1,200 mile inspection is an oil change, a differential change, which is kind of the key, and a couple other little items. And I said, do you guys need to drive the car? And he said, no. I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm going to wait for the car. And he's like, well, we're really busy. And he's like, I'm going to need it over the weekend. I'm thinking, no, over the weekend? You're freaking nuts. And then he goes, well, we've got the new 7 Series. I can put you in a 7 Series for the weekend. And as a car guy, I want to drive the new 7 Series. So I reluctantly agreed. I took the 7 Series home for the weekend, thoroughly enjoyed that. Come Monday, as soon as the dealership's open, 7:30, service department, I'm calling. I'm like, hey, I'm ready to pick my car up. And Scott gets on and goes, well, Emile, we were a little bit busier than we thought. We didn't get to your car. Give me till tomorrow. And now I'm like, I want my car. 1,200 mile break-in done so I can hammer down on the thing. But what am I going to do? So now I'm waiting until Tuesday. In the back of my mind, a little doubt started creeping in, like, what's going on here? Tuesday, 7:30, boom. Well, we might need the car for another day. I'm like, what's up with my car? And he finally tells me, he goes, well, one of the mechanics put a little scratch on the front fender, just a little itty bitty scratch. We're fixing it. I'm going to show you where it is when you come up and see the car. And then, if you're not happy with it, we'll figure out how to get you happy with it. And now my blood pressure's going up and I'm getting really nervous. But what am I going to do? I kind of have to agree, right? And then as I hang up the phone, I'm like, it's like to trust your instincts, right? Something isn't quite right. And so I get in the 7 Series and I start driving to the dealership. And I'm about 15 minutes away and I call him and I said, hey, by the way, I'm heading up. I'll see you in about an hour. And he starts hemming and hawing. And now I know something's up. And I'm very close now, but now I'm getting on the gas even more so. And I show up to the dealership, not an hour later as he expected. And he turns into a goat. He's white. He just sees my face. He's on the phone and he just freezes. And now I'm really nervous. Something's up. Again, I can barely afford this car. This is my baby. So I walk up to him, he hangs up the phone, and I'm like, I'm here to see, I need to see my car. I need to see my car now. And he goes, okay, give me a second, let me make a call. He makes a call, he hangs up, and now he's kind of calmed down. He goes, all right, where's the 7 Series? And I go, right there. And he goes, well, let's jump in it. And I'm like, I just want to see my car. And he goes, yeah, it's off site. I throw him the keys, we get in the car, we drive off site to their body shop, essentially, okay? Now I'll paint this picture. Come up the driveway, and it's like chain link fence because they don't care how the body shop looks, right? There's cars everywhere. And as we pull in, to the right, I see a steel gray E46 M3, but it's covered in plastic and clearly has been thoroughly repainted. So not my car as far as I'm concerned. I'm looking to the left, we park, he gets out, I get out, and I'm trying to find my car as the owner of the body shop, or the guy that runs the body shop, walks out, and he's the typical like mustached, greasy body shop owner guy, right? And he walks up and he goes, oh, your car's over here. And he points at the car that I saw on the way in that I know isn't my car. And so he starts walking towards the car, and I turn, I start walking behind him going like, no freaking, this is not my car, right? And as we get to the car, I realize the entire body side of the car has been repainted. Not like the front fender and a scratch has been touched up. Not only has it been repainted, they painted the car in the wrong color gray because it's faded in past the door into the rear fender, and it doesn't match. Forget that the texture doesn't match, the orange peel on it. It's a different color. And as I'm looking at it, I hear the guy talking to me, and I'm seeing red. Like the red mist it's on, right? I'm looking at the black shadow, black trim, overspray, clear on it. I'm just telling you the story right now. I'm getting a little worked up, right? And this guy's talking to me. I finally turn to the guy. I'm like, will you shut the you-know-what up? I don't know what you did to that car. That is no longer my car. And I turned to the service managers, and I'm like, get me back to the dealership right now. And the other guy keeps yapping at me. And I don't know how I didn't fly off the handle and deck him. Now, I know not to do that, but I am so fired up now. A former me would have knocked the guy, the you-know-what, out. Get back in the BMW, back to the dealership. On the way back, I call my friend Scott, who was my connection to the dealership. And I said, you better get to BMW because I'm about to get arrested. And Scott just hangs up the phone. This is the kind of, he's like a brother for me. This is the kind of communication we have, right? But Scott was the president of Sparco USA at the time, and they're 20 minutes away from this dealership. So I'm going to get arrested. I'm beating someone's ass, right? Get to the dealership. The service manager hasn't even stopped the 7 Series, and I'm out the door. By the way, now I'm seeing myself from outside, outer body experience. I'm not in control. I am not in control. I make a beeline through the dealership to the GM of the dealership at the time, storm into his office full steam, and there's a couple in their early 60s sitting in the chairs like this side by side. And I go right between them, hand on the desk, and I'm yelling over the desk, and I'm finger in his face. Your effing dealership wrecked my effing car, and you tried to effing lie to me about it. And that, in a volume appropriate for a helipad. So the whole dealership has now stopped, right? Then I feel a hand on me, and I go to turn around. I'm like, I am coiled and ready to attack. And I turn, it's my buddy Scott. And I'm like, thinking to myself, how did you possibly get here? It turns out he was down the street at a sandwich shop when I said get to BMW because I'm about to get arrested. And he knows me, Puerto Rican, hot-blooded. So he dropped a sandwich and went to the dealership. Probably saved me from doing something really stupid. So anyway, he calms me down. The dealership is like, Emile, we're gonna fix your car. And I kept on, that's not my car. That's your car. That's not my car. That's not my, we'll fix it for you. Dad. Not fixing it for me. You're fixing it for you. I want a new car. I want a new car. Scott calms me down. I leave. The most stressful 3 or 4 days of my life follow. I finally called a friend who's an attorney, and I didn't really want to do that, but I'm thinking these guys are trying to screw me. Every time I would talk to them, their message to me was like, we're going to fix it. We're going to make it right. We'll give you your car back. And I would remind them, not my car. I don't want that car. Because I'm the way we are about cars. Who knows? Oh, by the way, they weren't supposed to drive the car. I pull out my mileage log. The car had been driven 17 miles. Not 2 miles. Not 7 miles, 17 miles. Someone was out hot dogging the hell out of that car. So this attorney friend finally says to me, okay, Emile, firstly, you got to calm down. This is like 5-6 days later, and I'm still amped up. He goes, I want you to calm down, go back to the dealership, call and make an appointment to see the GM, sit down with him, and very calmly as you can muster, say to him, here's what's going to happen today. I'm either going to order my brand new E46 M3, my next one, or I'm walking down the street to the Porsche dealership. I'm going to buy a brand new 911, and you guys are going to pay for it. And so I did that, and the GM looked at me and said, give me a moment, went upstairs to, I guess, upper management, whoever the heck happened to be upstairs, came back down with a sales guy, whose name I can't remember. He was an amazing Australian guy. And he goes, Emile, this is your new sales guy, such and such. Go sit down with him and order your new M3. I just didn't think it was going to happen that smoothly and go that well. So it did. I went. The bummer of it was that my car was steel gray. Steel gray was discontinued. I ordered silver gray, sight unseen. It turns out the color was beautiful and I was very happy with it. Had to wait 4 months for the car. And so in the 4 months that it took to build my car and bring it to the US, I had a brand new 7 Series, all fuel paid for. Anytime I stopped the dealership, they would wash the car for me. And that 7 Series, I got all of it out of that car. All my friends drove it. One of my friends took it to Vegas with a bunch of his buddies. So it was cool to have that 7 Series, and it was also cool to get a new M3, even though it wasn't the color I originally wanted. I fell in love with the color, but let me tell you, what a stressful moment it was in my life. And if I had to go back and do it again, and even if I would have gotten that 911, I'd just as soon not have that experience because it was massively stressful.
Finding your next dream car can be like searching for a needle in a haystack, but the best tool to use is AutoTempest.com. AutoTempest is the smartest and most powerful tool to search for your next car or your dream car because they allow you to search all the major listing sites at once. Their motto is all the cars, one search, and they've been supporting VINwiki for the last 3 years. Quite honestly, it's the first place I go to look when I'm searching for my next car, and I think that you'll absolutely love it. So check them out today at the link in the description below and thank them for their continued support of VINwiki.